crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a set of cards using Create a Smile stamps and Hero Arts Ombre Inks. I have the Popping Over stamp set from Create a Smile. I really like this stamp set because it has 4 adorable little critters, and then it has some border building pieces as well as a couple of great sentiments. My idea today is to have the Just Poppin' By to Say on the outside, and then We've Moved on the inside, because recently we moved and I wanted to give a couple of address update cards out. So I'm not going to be using the ombre ink in the most traditional way. Instead of stamping with 3 inks at one time, I'm just going to use them for their matching colors. So I'm going to stamp 3 lines with the darkest color of ink, then stamp 3 lines with the medium color, and finally 3 lines with the lightest color. And I'm going to stagger the lines and basically just create a little border for the critters to be popping over, as in the titles of the stamp set. When I was working with the stamp set, I found it pretty difficult to line up the bricks, and so I'm not quite sure what the kind of trick on that one is, but here I decided rather than try to make things line up perfectly, I would allow myself to go with the flaws and have things that might be able to be like a little bit crooked. I would not try to, basically line them up perfectly one next to each other, but I would leave some white space in between. And once I stamped 3 of each color down, I'm going to go back and pair the darkest and continue the line with the lightest. So I'm taking the stamp again and finishing out the line created by the first one so that it has a more solid look, but I'm switching to the opposite color. So next to a long light line is a short dark line, and next to a long dark line is a short light line, and then in the center I just kept the medium tone all throughout. I did this with 4 different colors of Hero Arts Ombre Inks in I believe it's the lilac to grape, pool to dark pool, peach to light peach, and then there's a pink variation, I think it's pink to red. So then I'm going to put the critters so that they're popping over the little walls created by the ombre inks. And I'm going to use each critter so that everyone's card is a little bit different, but I can create them all at one time. So I have a different color palette and a different critter. I'm only going to show the coloring of one of the critters just for the sake of time, because this video could get quite long if I showed each and every one. And the coloring principles that I use in one is pretty applicable to all of them. So what I do with Copic Coloring is I tend to use a little bit of the light and medium colors, and then I don't color the entire image until I have most of the color laid down. So I keep the area that I want lightest white until I know that I'm done blending out, because if you go over your lightest area too many times, even with your lightest shade, it will get darker than you intended it to. So try to leave your lightest area white as long as possible. And I want to try to create some deep shadows. So in the parts farthest between his nose, or at the very top of his head where the shadows would be heaviest, I'm going to add a little bit of deeper color, and I'm going to keep my flicks really short in that area. When I color with Copics, I do a flicking technique, as I find that it helps the color blend a little bit better. And I don't saturate the paper as much, so I get less bleeding. If you have a lot of trouble with bleeding outside of the lines, it may be that you're putting a little too much pressure on your marker, and try to go with a lighter hand. That's always my suggestion with any coloring medium, is to always start with a light hand, because you can add more color, and it's true with Copics, colored pencils, distress ink, the whole lot. So to just give a little bit of interest where the white spots of the fox are, I just went in with a little W00 so that it didn't appear a flat white, but instead had a little bit of dimension, and I put that dimension right there at the top of his eye area. I'm going to mat them all on some black cardstock just to keep it simple and keep them all the same. And to create the sentiment banners, I am going to just pick one of the colors from the ombre inks it is easiest to apply a color that's on one of the ends, so either the lightest or the darkest. It's really hard to just cover a strip of cardstock with the medium tone. So all I do is take the ink pad and swipe it across a piece of cardstock. It creates a custom color match, so my sentiment panel will match exactly with my stamping. Sometimes you've probably seen me do that with Copic markers as well. I'm a big fan of just letting things match if that's possible. Plus, honestly, I think it takes a little bit less time than trying to search through your stash for a piece of cardstock that is similar in tone, when you could just use your whatever ink, distress inks, Copics, watercolor, any medium that you're working with. If you've already used that color somewhere else in your project, you can use it to create a small piece of cardstock for sentiments or for a mat and just ink up the edges. I'm going to use this sentiment just popping over to let you know, so that it has the ellipses at the end, so that it naturally leads to the inside sentiment. And for some of them, I'm keeping in mind that I will want the banner on one side or the other, and so I'm leaving room to cut the fishtail banner. And usually I do that by cutting down the center and then from the sides. And I'm going to pop them all up on some foam tape just to give a little bit of dimension, as this card is relatively flat. And I did just stamp them with the VersaFine ink because it's a really clear black ink. In the case of some of them, I've decided to put the sentiment where I made a little bit of a mistake. A few of them, I got a little bit of ink where I didn't want it to be, and so in order to hide that little error, I just strategically placed the sentiment. Now, I don't traditionally add a stamped sentiment to the inside, but because this stamp set conveniently had exactly the sentiment that I needed, I'm going to stamp it inside all of them, and this card set is going to be finished. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in seeing more crafting tutorials, you can subscribe to my channel. In the video description below, I will leave you some links to other videos featuring Create a Smile stamps, so you can check those out as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.